This week, Donald Trump meeting with the NRA. One of the, I don't know that there was much that was unexpected, but one of the highlights being that the Secret Service somehow has not gotten the memo that folks are more safe with the more guns that are in any given context, and therefore did not allow the NRA members to bring in their weapons to the presentation by the president. Now, of course, this breaks the cardinal rule of you can't possibly. This made the area a soft target, as it were, on some level, without everyone being armed to the teeth. And so your piece that actually guns do kill people is apropos. Maybe the NRA got wind of the research that you talked about, but tell us a little bit about past studies. Like, where were we on this in terms of data? Let's say in pre-2000.
Yeah, I mean, if a good guy with a gun saves lives, a stadium full of good men with guns is no doubt like the safest place in the world. So
it could raise people from the dead, perhaps.
So the short answer is we didn't have a ton of great data one way or the other in the late 90s. This is right when a lot of conservative arguments. People with better knowledge can time this better, but it's probably right when the NRA becomes a lot more militarized and a lot more conservative. It's also a period of a lot of like militias. If you go back then, a lot of like the beginnings of this kind of bubbling, real localized right-wing insurgency stuff. And there was a study by a guy named Lott. Said it was summarized in a bigger paper called "More Guns, Less Crime." And the idea there was, it was a little shaky at the time, and people ran different models that found different things. But they argued that if you pass a right to carry law, a right to basically, you force states shall issue concealed carry permits to its citizens. They don't have any kind of discretion in how to set it up broadly. Then crime would go down, violent crime would go down. And this is during a period in which violent crime and all crimes are going down everywhere. We can talk a little bit about why that was. Yeah. And so it looked like maybe it was there, but now out here in 2018, those results don't look so good.
All right. Well, let's talk about that era. You're right. George Herbert Walker Bush, in fact, I remember, quit the NRA. I think it was in 1995. It was shortly after Wayne LaPierre, I think, became a more vocal presence in the NRA. He became vice president. He had some rather radical things to say in the wake after the 1995 bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City. And this is also, like you say, just almost in the wake of the broad-based decline in crime across the country, in most places. Give us your assessment as to why we saw that drop in crime. Was it because more people were carrying guns?
No, we actually find that that's not the case. And so I'll talk about this. Yeah, so why did crime go down? People actually don't know very well. The important thing to note is that all kinds of crimes go down. So it's not necessarily like there's better awareness about rape or better awareness about drunk driving. And it also goes down everywhere. So it's hard to say like New York had the secret sauce to bring down crime, because crime also went down like Kansas City and Chicago. So, a lot of the kind of specific issues, no doubt play roles, but aren't the main cause. The thing that links up very well is reduction in lead in the environment.
Yes. This is my favorite theory of unintended consequences of government regulation.
It's super crazy, and it also shows up internationally well.
Yes.
Like states that got lead out of their gasoline and started pulling it out of their environment earlier showed a downtick in violent crime. And we know lead has really negative effects on all kinds of behavioral, things with young children. So it's sort of crazy. Everyone's talking about it. We flooded guns in all these places, and we threw so many millions of people in jail. And we did all this reactionary stuff. But then it also is just like good, regular environmental causes actually stopped all the crime.
Well, and here's the thing is that we have seen this is not a one-time event. I mean, people have been waiting for crime to rebound, maybe as a function of the economy, maybe as a function of ending policies like stop and frisk, maybe as a function of people attempting at certain points to respect the rights of different citizens, and the crime stays down. It seems to be invincible. The decline in the crime rate seems to be invincible when it comes to any policy changes or any other changes. And the only thing that has remained the same is obviously there is less lead in our environment. But of course, if you are just looking at a fairly narrow data set from the 90s, it's possible you could conclude that because in some areas we allowed more guns, that this was the cause. Yet we also have now a new data set, and that's a function of more states, unfortunately, in my opinion, increasing the ability of its citizens to conceal and carry.
Yeah, I mean, people thought maybe it's just that a function of being there a lot of young people that there's a lot of crime, people in like late teenage, early 20s, but like we had the millennials come and go, no crime wave, unemployment. We had 10% unemployment, the Great Recession, huge dislocation with the foreclosure crisis. No crime wave. So yeah, it's definitely stayed down. And it's also masked a relative increase for the states that increased their amount of concealed carry. So, people say there's, three kinds of lies, darn lies, and statistics. And I don't want to come here and say, well, a statistic proved that it happened. What really jumped, and I was genuinely agnostic. I'm not a big anti-gun person. I was raised by cops. Grew up around guns. But I was genuinely agnostic, kind of skeptical, because I've heard a lot of stories about, a bar fight that goes, instead of a black eye, two people shoot each other and die because they both had concealed carries. But I always wondered how much that was around to really impact it, if you could actually have enough of those stories that impact it. And I think the evidence is really conclusive in this direction. One is the first and most obvious thing, though it's the smallest thing, is that a lot of those initial studies, when you run it again and you have 20 plus states that pass it from the 90s into the mid-aughts and now decades of data, those initial studies show a large increase in violent crimes. 10 to 15% higher, statistically significant. We're talking violent crimes. We're talking robbery, rape, aggravated assault, murder, manslaughter, very serious crimes. And the people who made those studies have largely backed away, in part because they've won, so they just kind of count their victories now. But they also aren't trying to fight the empirics anymore. On the study that I write about for The Nation magazine, they do four different ways. Go ahead.
Hold on for 1 second. Can you just clarify? So there were studies that showed as concealed carry became more prominent, there was an increase in violent crime.
Yeah, absolutely. So the original study that showed that in around 1995 to 1997 is when the study was kind of put out and pushed. They said the few states in the early 90s that increased concealed carry, that passed concealed carry laws, saw a decline in violent crime. If you did their same statistics, their same approach, but added in the extra 25 years and extra 20 years and added in the extra 20 states, you would see that violent crime actually does increase, and it gets bigger 10 years down the road.
All right. Well, let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about, you were about to introduce four elements to this study. Let's take a break, and when we do that, we will come back. I am Sam Seder, talking to Mike Konczal about his piece in The Nation, Actually Guns Do Kill People. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio.